So, who would have known that even a vegetarian could have been defeated by salmonella, right? Salmonella. See, that's something that I, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, had to learn at SK Teringai back in 2024 when I was a volunteer for Project Anak Malaysia. Now, you would think that graduating from the nation's foremost university would have taught me that, yeah, even vegetarians who don't eat meat could get salmonella. I didn't know that, but I guess I did. And let's just say I had a fun detox in Sabah. You couldn't find my waist after I experienced such a tumultuous time, going through the meal, getting salmonella. But yeah, I guess we'll hear more about that today. So my name is Sulakhni Kaur Khosa, and I am very, very excited to be here with you guys today. So the S in my name will very uniquely stand for side quests, as I'm sure you can see over here. And I hope that today, that won't be the only thing that we have in common. So I'd like to show you guys just how much of similarities you and I may have, and that you too can achieve some of the things that I have been fortunate enough to have done. So, I, just as they shared earlier, am a recent graduate of University of Malaya. As we all know, it is a very prestigious university, and the journey to get there was not very, very easy. So how did I get there? Now this will be relevant because the entirety of why I'm here today has almost nothing to do with the fact that I studied law at University of Malaya. So, just like most of you, I went to a typical government school adjacent to my home. I grew up there, and unsure of what to do after my secondary education, I decided to pursue my studies at the Government Matriculation College. So that resembles a 9-month fast track, similar to what you guys know as A-levels. And while I was there, I unfortunately received my first taste of discrimination. But I'll politely say it as the quota system. Now, this was quite a brutal reality for me, having grown up in Subang Jaya, where I was surrounded by peers of many, many cultures, many, different faces. So I wasn't very, very used to being riddled down to a quota. And I'm a Sikh, so I like to think that I am the minority of all minorities in this context. But though the journey was not easy and I did struggle through my matriculation studies, I eventually made it. I managed to earn a spot in the hallowed halls of the University of Malaya's Faculty of Law. And the only thing that I thought about when I got there was the fact that I had so many other friends and peers who were much smarter than me, who had 1,000 of A's, who did the most scholastic things in the world, but never got a spot in same university. All because of a butchered system known as the quota system. So what changed for me? So that then got me thinking, I managed to earn my place, but I need to now give back because I recognize that what I have is a privilege. And that then got me thinking, the need to do more, the want to give back, how I can foster a change. So then, in my first year, I unfortunately had to take a very mundane subject known as Law and Society. And I say mundane because, to be honest, it did not teach me anything I already knew. But through this subject is where my life, I would say, changed for the better. Now, for one of our assignments, we had to reach out to an NGO and, do a run-of-the-mill legal analysis, learn, some things about what they were doing, their missions. And I stumbled across North-South Initiative. Now, North-South Initiative is a NGO based in Petaling Jaya that's mission focuses on bridging the gap between migrant workers and the legal system that they have in place within Malaysia. So, long story short, they advocate for justice and equality for these migrant workers. And this is quite foreign to me because, again, growing up in Subang Jaya, I wasn't really exposed to the fact that, there's a lot of migrant workers who may not necessarily have the same rights that we do. When I think of a migrant worker, I think about the security guard who works at, some of the favorite cafes I like to visit or at the malls I like to go to. So then began my journey as an intern at North-South Initiative. And this is a very, very pivotal stage, I guess, in my journey here today, because not only did NSI open so many doors for me, they helped me find my voice, they gave me confidence, and they gave me the platform to speak up on things that I am very passionate about. And throughout my time in NSI, I managed to do such interesting things. I managed to visit the UNHCR headquarters. I got to sit in at UN roundtables, even attended the meeting where they were discussing tabling the bill for the anti-sexual harassment laws in Malaysia. Very, very interesting for a 19-year-old girl to do in her first year studying at University of Malaya. And funnily enough, I managed to work on a tribunal that we ended up winning just this year that managed to bring so much back to these migrant workers. Now, migrant workers eventually then held a very powerful place with me because my father works with a lot of migrant workers. Now, he runs a security company where he deals with supplying security guards to many, many companies, and I saw how he was making the change. He didn't do much, he didn't overpay them, oversell nothing, but what he did was treat them like a human being. Something that should be, I guess, the basis for each and every person, but it's not. I mean, after all, before we are anything, before we are a student, before we are a mother, before we are a father, before we are any nationality, we are human beings first, aren't we all? Shouldn't we be given the same platform to be given access to the basic rights? So, now how does this play in touch of all the things that I've pointed out here? NSI began my journey to advocacy. It gave me a platform, and it started the conversation in my head. Now, I like to tell you guys here, I'm sure as we go along my session here today, you guys will see that a lot of what I do relates to me on a personal level. And truth be told, I feel like I find the most success when I pursue something that I genuinely have a relation to, a personal connection to, something that puts my emotion, makes me think, makes me ponder, and makes me want to do more. Because why? I have emotions tied to it. And that's sort of what I want to entail or enlist to you guys here today. I know it's very, very hard to find a common connection to economics or actual science or anything that you guys might potentially be studying in your degrees, right? How am I supposed to relate, what I'm studying in econs to doing more for the world? But just like me, studying law, I really urge you guys to look beyond the framework of the curriculum of what you have in front of you. Start thinking about what more you can do. And it doesn't have to be a big change, it can start with small steps. I like to now go back to the fact that when you are in this position, where we all are here today, we all have privilege in our own ways. And with that, I like to think about all the good Samaritans you've come across in your time. Now, people like to say that Rome wasn't built in a day, implying that time is very, very precious. I like to talk about how Rome wasn't built alone. We all need more than just yourself to build what we are today. And that's how I began my time with Project Anak Malaysia. So, Project Anak Malaysia is something that has taken so much of my patience, so much of my time, but has also shown me more love than I could have ever imagined, shown me how beautiful the simple things in life can be, and also made me recognize how privileged I actually am. Now, let's start at the beginning. Project Anak Malaysia is a project under the NGO Charisma Movement. And we are an education-based project that runs exclusively in Sabah, where we send volunteers out to Kota Marudu for 2 weeks, where we spend all our time on site educating, reaching out to the community, and really learning about the issues that they might face over there. What I think is so full circle is that a lot of our volunteers actually come from KYUEM. So we have such great scholars, which you guys will hear more about as I go on with my session here today. But how did Project Anak Malaysia actually start? Now, this year will mark our 15th year running the project, but the way it started was very, very unique. Now, 15 years ago, the Guru Besar of SK Teringa at the time, Cikgu George, reached out to his friend, Mr. Robert, who was part of the Rotary Club of Kota Kinabalu. And he said, "Robert, I'm having an issue. the kids in SK Teringai, they can't even fathom basic mathematics. Let's not even talk about how our UPSR results are abysmal. Another problem they were having was the fact that the female students were choosing to get married instead of pursuing secondary education. I mean, I'm 23 and the thought of marriage still scares me, so I'm thinking a 12-year-old, you want to get married? Yeah, let's not even get into that, right? So he said, do you have an idea? What can we do? Then Robert said, don't worry. I know what we can do. Let's find some scholars from Malaysia who are currently studying in the UK. Let's bring them out. Let's send them to Sabah. And let's maybe give the kids something to look at. Like, oh, abang-abang, kakak-kakak ni are so successful, right? They're studying abroad, they're independent, living their own life, traveling, right? Wouldn't you be inspired? I'm sure that's why we have this session here today, right? To hear about success stories. So then they sent the first batch of volunteers to SK Teringai. And for context, guys, it's not in Kota Kinabalu, yeah? We are driving 2 hours down to Kota Marudu. We're hopping in the back of a lorry, going on a dirt road for another hour until we reach SK Teringai. And this was back 15 years ago. So what we have today isn't what we had back then. So the volunteers went, they had the program, and just a few months after the volunteers eventually left, we had the UPSR examinations at the time. And when the results came out, Mr. Robert got a call from Cikgu George. I guess I'll sort of share the excitement. It was something along the lines of, Robert, guess what? SK Teringai recorded their first ever A. I know to you guys are scholars, you guys get 15 A's, 9 A plus, everything. But to them, an A was something that comes by maybe every 10, 20 years when they have a very, very exceptional student. And they got their first ever A. It was such a magnitude that the Ketua Kampung actually went out and bought the boy a bicycle to celebrate such a feat. I mean, I'm just saying, he must have been a very, very lucky boy. And that began the impact of Project Anak Malaysia. Few years down the road, as we continue to run our project, we get a statistic back from the local high school. And they said, sejak budak-budak yang pakai baju merah tu datang, kami perasan banyak lagi lah pelajar perempuan yang nak masuk sekolah menengah. Asrama pun dah penuh, kenalah kita usahakan lagi. Look at what a bunch of 18 and to 25-year-olds did. Look at what our past peers have done. All they did was start a conversation, start talking about what they did. They were just sharing about their lives. Maybe they were just telling the kids, abang bangun pagi dekat UK tu, jalan ke kelas, sejuk, memang sejuk ah. Lepas tu, maybe weekend, ambil train, pergilah lawak kawan-kawan dekat, itulah macam tu. But for them, it was like getting a taste of something they've never had before. So how did I come to work with Project Anak Malaysia? So I was scrolling on Instagram and I saw an ad that said, 2 weeks, Sabah, good experience. And for me, I was like, yep, so, I was in my second year at the time and I thought, let's do something that is interesting. So I took the plunge and thus began my very, very exciting, interesting time with the Project Anak Malaysia. So this will be my 4th year working with it. I started off as a volunteer, I was the project director, and now I'm the managing director. All throughout my degree, I have pledged my time to Project Anak Malaysia. And funny enough, I was assigned to SK Teringai in my first year. And let's just say all it took was the 2 weeks. I won't go too much into detail of sleeping on the floor, finding out that there are more bugs than cockroaches and cicak. Ada tokek, some very, very scary beings that used to keep me up at night. Not to mention the water issues, kena mandi sungai. But I found myself thinking, okay, next year I need to book my flights 3 months in advance because it'll be cheaper. So that is the Project Anak Malaysia impact. So now I'd like to talk about a few people that I've met within Project Anak Malaysia, which I feel can inspire you guys. The first person I'd like to talk about is Hasta. My dear, dear friend Hasta. Now Hasta is a 30-year-old engineer. He was a Petronas scholar, got a full scholarship to pursue engineering in the UK, and now he is bonded with Petronas. He's working full-time, an engineer. He's a man in STEM. And every single year, he takes up his entire annual leave of 2 weeks to come for Project Anak Malaysia. Can you believe that? He should be in Europe. He should be having his Euro summer moment, but he's in Sabah, sleeping on the floor, willingly getting salmonella, and spending his time with 18-year-olds who are still figuring out their lives. He's 30, he has a job, he has stability, he has everything he needs. He doesn't need to pad his CV anymore. He's done it. And he's been volunteering for 5 years. And when you think about that, right, you think about the fact that he takes up all his free time, he comes back every single year because he knows that what he does makes a difference. And I've seen him firsthand. He's an engineer, right? The way he does his experiments, he can take something as simple as a straw and construct a windmill and relate it to what he's doing right now as an engineer. And I can see how the light bulb in these kids flicker and they're like, wow, saya nak jadi macam Abang Hasta. I can do more. And if Hasta can take 2 weeks of his annual leave every year and come for Project Anak Malaysia, what is stopping me? I have a 3-month summer break every year in uni. I can do my holiday, in August, in September, after my 2 weeks, So then it dawned on me, I can do more, I can do more. Then, I'd like to share with you guys about my friend Shabil. Now, funny enough, Shabil is actually a graduate from KYUEM. He was a Bank Negara scholar and now is finishing his final year at the London School of Economics. I'm very, very proud to call Shabil my friend, and funny enough, we met my first year volunteering at SK Teringai. And little did I know that Shabil and I would be the ones coming back every single year for Project Anak Malaysia. So can you imagine, he studies in the UK, he uses his flight allowance to come back for the 2 weeks to volunteer, and then he'll go back. Studying in LSE, has the time to do that. And one thing I loved about Shabil is that he really took the fact that he had the privilege to study abroad, something that these kids in Sabah may not even have the chance to do, and he ran with it. So over his summer, like most of our peers would do when you're studying in the UK, you would go and travel abroad, right? You'd see the richness that the world has to offer. And what Shabil did after his first year is that he started collecting postcards. He would collect a postcard from every single country he would visit, and when he got it, he would start writing his recount of his experiences there. Little did I know, every year he would come back for PAM, he would bring his postcards and he would sit down and the kids would gather around him and they would learn about all the countries he visited. He would talk about how beautiful Rome is, how amazing he found skiing in Switzerland, how all his experiences were so fulfilling for him. And these kids were hanging on to each and every one of his last words. And that's how you know your impact is there. So why am I sharing with you guys the stories about Hasta, about Shabil, about my journey? It's coming back to the reason that I'm here today. To tell you that you don't need to start a big movement to make a change. You just need to start a conversation. I like to think that you can definitely profit off your passion. And this will now come to my next segment where I talk about all the opportunities that have come for me the second I started being curious, the second I started asking myself, yes, I had to go through the quota system, but I have privileges that people don't have. And once I started giving back to Project Anak Malaysia, I found that opportunities came back to me in tenfold. From Project Anak Malaysia, I was given the opportunity to go abroad and volunteer. I was selected for a YSELI academic fellowship where I got to spend over a month in the United States, learning, getting experiences that no one else can have. And still, the only thing that stuck by me was the fact that, the kids in Sabah can't even dream about something like this, so I need to take it and run. And I found myself when I was strolling along the halls of Harvard. I got to visit Harvard, that's my flex. I might not get to study there, but I visited it. And I was just thinking, wow, how am I going to tell the kids in SK Teringai about this? How am I going to tell all of them like, whoa, it actually is red. The bricks are red. You know, Elle Woods went there and I was there too. Like, I need to tell them about these things. And I found myself doing that with all the experiences I got after. So what I'm trying to say here is, yes, we all have problems, right? But it is very, very important to step behind it and realize that while we do have problems, some of our issues can tend to be first world problems. And some people can't even dream of having said problems. Remember I shared with you guys about the kids in Sabah? Some of them can't even go to school because tak ada air. And here I am crying about the fact that, oh, I got to be on a test. Okay, I got to be on a test, I'll study harder, I'll do better. Oh, I didn't get into my dream university. But I still have 5 other offers I can take and I can still pursue an education. Whereas there's someone else who doesn't have the same positions that you do. So really, ask yourself, how grateful am I to be in the position that I am today? How lucky am I to be in a place where I can speak freely, where I can start my own ideas, and where I can pursue my own thoughts? So before I leave you here today, I'd like to remind you guys, it's okay to be curious, it's okay to ask questions, and you don't have to start something fresh. It's good to take the leap, join someone who has a similar idea of you, pursue something that you have a lot of passion in, because I can almost guarantee you, it'll bring you all the success in the world. And as long as you can make a small change, you already will change someone's life. Thank you so much for my time. I hope you guys learned something, and yeah. Thank you so much.